chat.
Okay.
So if anything comes up, I'll filter it to you when there's like a break in the conversation. I'll try to catch up with anything that's been going on.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
There's also a bit of a delay between when I hit the button and when we start live, and I don't know yet how long that is, so I just usually talk randomly until I figure, hey, it's probably working. So hello and welcome to Detention Live from the RPG Academy podcast. I am Michael, and tonight I have with me an extra special guest co-host. You may know him already from his role on the BomBARDed Podcast. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dungeon Maestro Kyle, and it's an honor to be here with you, Michael, in detention with the bad boys.
That's right. So here in detention, we are staying after class in the hallowed halls of the RPG Academy to take care of those ne'er-do-wells, hogans, academaniacs as it is, or were, that are a little bit rough around the edges and need some extra time in class. Targris says, yes, it is working, so at least one person heard us rambling there for a little bit.
That's great.
So for anyone who might not yet be familiar with your podcast, give me the lowdown. What is BomBARDed?
BomBARDed is a D&D podcast, and we're actually, everybody who's in the podcast, we're all in the same band, Lindby, out of Fort Worth, Texas. And, you know, we'd been playing D&D for a little while. I had introduced everyone to it, and we were going through it, and, like, our piano player got enamored with these chord dice that he found online.
Oh, nice.
We should find a way to work this in. And then we all kind of got on board to listening to the Adventure Zone. We were like, well, we want to do a D&D podcast. Well, we want to do
everyone else is. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Go for it. So we were like, okay, well, let's put two and two together. You know, we have some skill here. We have some skill here. We'll just make a sandwich. And that's how BomBARDed came to be. I mean, they all play a bard multi-class. Like, okay. I got a barbarian, as I've seen it coined online by many people. I have a bard rogue and a bard druid. So that's Yashi, Randy, and Razzle. They're all level 3 of their like regular class, and they're all level 1 bards. So they're just starting out at bard school. And that's what episode 1 is all about. But so they actually play. We bring our instruments to the table, and they perform their bard spells. And every episode, we take those chord dice that our piano player Spurrier or Randy got, and we each roll a chord dice, and we use those chords to write a song every episode, which is in relation to what's going on.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, no, it's been a blast. Like, I'm really surprised at, like, you know, there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and unfortunately, being the DM, I kind of have to be like unbiased about it, so I don't really participate in the songwriting part.
Okay.
I come in at the end, and they're like, yeah, here, you know the chords that we rolled. I helped them roll those, but all I do is I just pick up my bass and I put a bass line to whatever they have. So I really don't participate in that. In fact, sometimes I zone out and I'll take a nap, or I'll listen to music, or I'll listen to another podcast. And then I'll come in as the non-player character that they're interacting with and let them know what they thought about it. And it can be good, it can be bad, you know, but there is eventually a little bit of spoilers. You get kind of this stuff in end of episode 3 and episode 4, where their music can actually complete actual magic when they do those ensemble kind of roles. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just like a performance role and then they play a song. Granted, that's like the first 2 episodes, but you know, eventually it turns into something where they are able to manipulate the world around them in a magical sense using what I have called their musico-magical abilities.
Nice. So how long has the podcast been running?
We started back in August, I believe it was. But we tried to get a good backlog because we realized after the first episode, the project that we had decided to throw ourselves into, which we're all very enamored with it. It's been a blast, but you know, we got a little bit of a backlog, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Okay.
So,
and so how many episodes do you guys have out currently?
Right now, we have, in the main storyline, we have 8 episodes. I think we just released an 8th episode on Tuesday. We did a holiday, what was supposed to be a one-off, but I am very ambitious with my writing, apparently, and one-off turned into a 2-off. So, you know, that wound up being our holiday special, which actually I kind of recommend people to listen to, even though it's not the holidays anymore. You know, it still has that wintry feel. You get kind of an idea for the podcast without all the setup. It's just like, here's some characters, here's the scenario, wham, bam, done. So, you know, you get a little bit of the flavor of the podcast, and, you know, you get a better idea for what's to come rather than, you know, the first 3 episodes, which still set up good. Episode 2 has probably still one of my favorite moments so far, which features Yashi. Well, I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a lot of fun. They get in their first brawl and everybody really finds their ground as far as fighting goes.
Now, so how many episodes are out? Are you guys weekly or bi-weekly or whenever?
We're on a bi-weekly basis, just to give Goodrich, who plays Razzle, time, and bless him. Like, I have never been in a D&D game where somebody has worked more than me being the DM.
Yeah.
So he puts a lot of time into the production and editing, and I got to give props to Spurrier. He does a fantastic job with the background music. We all have a good time with it, putting in what we can. And yeah, so with them, it's every other week we come out. We came out this recent Tuesday, just 1 day ago, yesterday. I know what day it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, they don't all just blend together at one point. Yeah. But yeah, so we released one yesterday. So we'll have another one in 2 days. I'm not sure of the exact date of it and right offhand, but I guess I could reference a calendar when it's appropriate. So
okay. So
yeah.
So if anybody wants to check out your show and they haven't yet, where should they go?
Wherever you access podcasts, really. We have it on, I think we're hosting on Podbean. You can get it through iTunes. I don't know about many of the other branches. I haven't really checked, but we've definitely put it out there. I've seen it on some really obscure things. Just, I don't Google myself, but I'll Google my podcast.
Sure.
And it's random websites that have it on there. I'm just like, cool. Yeah. You just type it in on Google and you probably find it.
You'll find something. Yeah. So again, it's BomBARDed, BomBARDed.
Yes.
All right. And I know your Twitter handle, which we're going to get to in a minute, makes no sense to me. I'm sure there's a story behind it, but you guys have a Twitter for the show, which is BomBARDed Cast, I think.
Yeah, at BomBARDed Cast.
All right. So that if anybody wants to check it out, please go do so. So with all of that out of the way, you talked about, you introduced this game to your bandmates. So how long have you been playing?
The first time I ever played D&D was when I was 14, and my older brother had moved back from Oregon where he was living, and introduced me to it. He ran me in a one-off, just one-on-one campaign. And honestly, I remember it so vividly. I still use it for first-time players.
Oh, okay.
Long story short, you go through a dungeon. And that's not a dungeon. It's a cave system. And at the very beginning, there's just a bottomless pit with a huge gust of wind coming up. Then you work your way through and further down. And at the end, you realize you do something and the cave begins to explode or collapse in on you. And the only way out is a gust of wind that's coming from the bottom.
Yeah.
You shoot up right through the top. So that stuck with me ever since I've started playing. But that was at 14. And I played there was an on and off period from 14 to 16. In 16, I met a friend in high school named Devin, and he invited me over to his house, which was really weird because I was a sophomore and he was a senior. So, but he was a really cool dude. We didn't play D&D, but we played the Star Wars Revised Core Rulebook.
Okay.
Which, man, that was a blast. My first character for that was a Bothan. I was a Bothan scout. Just had to be a little furry guy, not the big, it couldn't be a Wookiee. There's somebody else is already doing that, but they invited me in, and it went back and forth between a little bit of Star Wars and a little bit of D&D up until, I was about 19, graduated high school. A lot of friends moved out of the area, and then it kind of stopped for about 10 years. And I picked it back up 2 years ago. Yeah, I'm 31, 2 years ago, not to age myself, but yeah, so I picked it up 2 years ago again, and when we first played, I hadn't looked into 5e, and I wasn't going to buy a book when I had a 3.5 edition.
Sure, so yeah, why would you?
I made it easy for them. I made all their characters. I just pre-gemmed them up, gave them a little bit of backstory to work with, and we were doing what we called the Lindby lock-in. It was just a weekend. We were staying over at one of our parents' house and spending all that time writing songs and practicing together and doing that whole big, band thing. But then we took time out to play mainly a lot of Rocket League and some Dungeons and Dragons. So that was their first introduction, which I feel kind of bad now that I knew that 5e was out, because you played 3.5?
Oh yeah, I played lots of 3.5.
Yeah, okay, I figured. So the math labor of that entire edition, I love it because of the customization you can do in the skills. The point buy for the skills really, really drug me in. But then after explaining all that to them and realizing, okay, this is kind of a slog for them, and I can tell it. I really wish I had started off with 3.5, but it wasn't too long before I switched. Somebody got me a player's handbook for my birthday one Christmas, well, December, but and we switched over. I just switched all their character information over, made it work, and we kept going from there, and had a dang good time. Enough to start a podcast.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for humoring me with all of your backstory. So I will ask, as I've already hinted, where does your Twitter handle come from? Because I have no frame of reference for what it is. I'm sure it's something I don't know.
No, absolutely. The theory part is easy. I have 2 degrees in music theory. I spent a lot of time studying it. I really enjoyed it. I've made some life decisions. I'm now working at a repair shop for band and orchestra instruments, which I enjoy very much. So, but music theory is more just like a life passion of mine. I enjoy just the structure, makeup of chords and form. I'm not going to get into that. That is dry. But the other part, Boognish, I actually did a little questionnaire on Twitter the other day, but Boognish is a demon god who presented himself to the brothers Ween, Dean and Gene Ween, of the band Ween, which is a fantastic band. They're so eclectic. Their earlier stuff, their first 4 albums, are a little hard to access. You know, you really have to put some time into listening to it and pick out kind of what are the gems. Granted, I honestly, I say this, more often than not, but I think I like Ween maybe more than I like D&D, which, I don't, they're totally 2 different things. So, but I think I have more more Ween stuff than I do D&D stuff, but I'm changing that as time goes along.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, no, it's a fantastic band, and the symbol is just like this crazy smiling face, just this big open grin, like a square grin, and spikes, 7 spikes, 10 teeth. Just looks wild and crazy. They put on awesome live shows. You can watch numbers of live shows on YouTube. They're live in Chicago. That's a great introduction because you get a little bit of the accessible stuff, like their later stuff. And you get a little bit of the earlier stuff too, which, the fans like myself, I really enjoy it. It's that perfect kind of weird. I don't know. You've heard of the Butthole Surfers, right?
Yes, I've heard of them. I don't think I've ever, unless I had something on the top 40. I'm not a music file. I listen to the radio and I listen to podcasts. That's it.
Totally fair. Yeah, no, I've heard Ween on the radio once, and it was a college radio station. So it gives you an idea. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it. It's just the demon god who told them to become a band when they were in 7th grade typing class together.
As you do.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
Takes all things.
So with that, we will go ahead and jump kind of into the show. So we'd like to start with a little segment we call "What Are You Drinking?" So Kyle, what are you drinking?
I am drinking, in honor of my producer and editor Goodrich, I am drinking a gin and tonic, which is one of his favorite beverages. And I have my little drinking buddy Mitch here hanging out with me. Yeah, I was gonna have a drinking buddy. So
very, very cool. I'm on the water kick right now. I'm not drinking anything else, but I do have a My Little Pony glass or cup. So that's what I'm going to drink.
There you go.
Alrighty. So then we'll jump into extracurricular, and this is where we just talk about what's been going on outside of D&D or even inside D&D. It really doesn't matter. It's just what you've been up to the last couple of weeks. Any books you've read or movies you've watched or records you've listened to or CDs or video games. So what's been going on in Kyle's life?
One of the records that I keep coming back to in the last couple of weeks is Led Zeppelin's Houses of the Holy. It's a fantastic album. Can't recommend it enough. Just, great mix of songs. I watched The Bachelorette and Bachelor Products with my wife, which is Griffin McElroy's fault. Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and put him on blast for that. But no, we enjoy it. In fact, we had a drinking game earlier where anytime they say something, like totally or awesome or I like that, we drink wine to it. And, so we had a good time with that earlier now that we were able to. But that I've been trying to catch up on reading X-Men Blue. And also Man of War, I think it is. I don't know. I'm reading a couple different comics that I'm trying to keep up with, and I'm way behind on that for writing for BomBARDed. But gotcha. But yeah, other than that, we've been. I picked up watching Angel because my wife got me to watch Buffy over the summer. We watched that, thoroughly enjoyed it, And I decided, David Boreanaz, he's a great guy. Let's go ahead and give him a look and see what happens. And digging on Joss Whedon stuff. I might commit a sin here, but I've never really watched a lot of Joss Whedon stuff. I haven't watched. Oh man, I am digging myself a bad hole right here.
Don't say it. Don't even say it.
So going on, I've been also playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, which has been just fantastic. I started off when we got the Switch. I started off playing a little bit of Mario Odyssey, and I played that for a day, and then switched over to Breath of the Wild, and I just haven't been back to Mario. So my little plumber guy's gonna have to wait. So what you been up to?
So Short Manian 444 threw out that they have heard of the Rose Buddies, and they have not watched a show that shall not be named here either. So you are not alone in that giant gaping hole in your nerddom.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad I'm not alone. Man.
So I never watched Buffy when it was out. Like that, it wasn't on my radar. But this has been several years ago now, maybe like 10 years ago. I don't know, but it was on Netflix. And one summer, my wife and I, we just watched the entire run, like all, I think 6, 7 seasons. We would just come home every day after work and watch like 2 or 3 episodes on Netflix. And I burned through the whole series. I loved it. I mean, I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I went to Angel. I got lukewarm. Like I've heard people say that if you stick with Angel, it's actually better. Mm-hmm. I never got there. I gave up on it after I think maybe the 3rd season. It just didn't connect with me like Buffy did. So so I've not finished that. But I did watch his other show that he's really well known for, as well as Dollhouse. What's that?
You talking about Bones?
No, Dollhouse. And then there was the other one about the guy in space and the cowboy. Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, that one, which I thoroughly. It's probably my favorite TV show of all time, and there's an particular episode that is my favorite episode of TV ever. So, it's awesome. Pretty awesome stuff. I've actually recently got back into video games as well, which boo-hoo, woe is me. But I put a lot of time into the podcast over the last 5 years or so. That's been kind of my hobby more than anything else. I also have 2 young kids now. I got a 6-year-old and a soon-to-be 7-year-old.
Awesome.
And they're starting to play like Nintendo Wii. We got them a Wii U for Christmas. We haven't got to the Switch yet. That'll be a couple of years.
Right. Something not portable where they can just take it anywhere.
Right. And we have a little area for them so we can watch what they do and everything. So I've kind of started getting played back into them. And I just recently bought an Xbox One. And so far, the majority of what I've spent on it is to buy games I already own on other Xbox systems so I can play it on the one. Right now, it's Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I've been playing the crap out of that game. It's a waste of money. I spent like way too much money to rebuy the game I literally already own. I can go play on the other system anytime I want. But I want it on this one. I've been playing that. And also Star Wars Battlefront. Number 1, because I always buy stuff old. I don't buy new stuff. So the first one, it seems okay. It seems like it's very much made for multiplayer, and I don't play a lot of multiplayer. So the single campaign's been it's okay, but I don't think it's great.
Okay. No, that's totally fair. Now the Marvel Ultimate Alliance, is that the isometric kind of Gauntlet Legends style?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
There was in the original Xbox, there was a game called X-Men Legends and X-Men Legends 2.
Yes.
It's basically the upgraded version of that. It's by Activision, same company, but this one has it's like the huge crossover. Every Marvel superhero you can think of is playable and unlockable, and with the bundle that I bought online, most of the unlockable stuff came already. So my team.
It's like I've done this before. I don't need to do it again.
Exactly. So my team is Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, Nightcrawler, and Deadpool. And Cap is my main person. So I've been giving him all the upgrades. And I pretty much at this point I can just throw my shield and take anything out. It's almost ridiculous, but I still enjoy it.
Heck yeah.
So Short Minion said that they love the game. I assume they mean Ultimate Alliance. I don't know because we were talking about so much. But I am on Xbox Live. If anybody does want to friend me, I'm the RPG Academy. I don't play a lot of online games, but if someone wants to play Marvel Ultimate Alliance, probably can find me on there. And then someone also asked about the particular episode. It's Out of Gas. I think that is just brilliant television. There's one small thing with it that just it's a nitpick, and I won't say anything, but other than that, it's perfect in all ways. At least I think so, anyways.
Awesome.
Cool. Yep. So you can just again, I'm trying to read chat at the same time.
No, that's fair. You do your thing, man.
Yep. Again, I got a little tickle through. I apologize.
Nah. I'll take a drink with you.
Usually, if we say session 0, by the way, everyone takes a drink at that point. That's our
I'm
thing.
up on that. So take a drink then.
Exactly. So what I was going to say is actually you're talking about watching The Bachelor and Bachelorette. This show is probably 15 years old. But did you ever watch the Joe Schmo show?
That wasn't the one where they got all the actors to play. Yeah.
There was one dude who didn't know what was going on, and everyone else was in on it. And they were doing a reality show version. It also was. It was kind of like Burning Love is now, but this was like the precursor.
Right.
So like there was this over the top stupidity, sexualization about. And again, I don't want to get graphic, but the show was funny in the way it presented it. Like even the way you would. It was something about lighting someone's candle is how you would stay, I think. And all the men would hold their candle suggestively as they were waiting. Right. And then instead of giving someone a rose, you would give them an item of jewelry that has a secondary connotation to, we won't have to get into that. But it is.
I'm gonna have to go back and check this
out. It's awesome.
I remember it. I remember hearing it because I remember one of the things I always remember the guy saying, and I'm gonna back off the mic. Is like, what is going on? That's what I remember from that.
And what's crazy about it is whoever picked that guy did an amazing job because he is so endearing, and it's like you start to feel bad for him in a way because he is so earnest. But he makes the show watchable because it's not just cruel, because he truly is a nice person. He comes across as a nice person in the show.
Yeah. And
even when all this crazy stuff is going on, he's just like a regular Joe Schmo kind of guy. And I really, really like that show. It's so outdated. I'm sure there's some humor now that I would find distasteful. But at the time, I remember really liking it.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I watched some of that with my mom growing up and whatnot, and we just had a ball laughing at it.
Yeah, so Short Meaning's also thrown in. There was a scene where there was a falcon that was supposed to fly in and land on the guy's glove, and he was bringing a note, and it was a whole thing that they did with that. So again, go find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube or Hulu or something. So we'll get into our first of our improv games. Again, you told me you've watched a few episodes or listened to them, so you kind of have an idea what's going on. So the first one is 10 Things. Okay. Are you familiar with how 10 Things works?
Yes. I believe you give me a prompt, and I'm supposed to answer them as quickly as possible. Accuracy is not as important as speed.
Correct. So you are the guest. Would you like to give me a prompt first or receive a prompt first?
Let's see. I will give you a prompt first. How about that?
Sounds good.
Give me 10 DC characters that you would want to have in Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
The question. Batgirl.
2.
Batman.
3.
Superman's too powerful, so I don't want Superman around.
Okay.
Oh god. I'm drawing a blank. Nightwing.
4.
Beast Boy.
5.
Oh. Rich and Caleb are gonna kill me. Superboy, that would work.
6.
Magon, Kid Flash, Robin.
9.
Who's left? Aqualad.
10. There you go.
Yay! All right. So again, that hit me. Okay, so for you, what are 10 things that we would find in the margin of our Bard's song book?
In the margin of the Bard's song book.
Yeah, so they're writing their songs. What are they writing in the margins?
Proper. Is this proper voice leading?
1.
Am I doing double leading tones?
2.
What mode do I actually want to use?
3.
Minor or major?
4.
Swung 8s or straight 8s?
5.
Oh man. Guitar or lute?
6. And it
man.
actually the inflection is in the page?
Yes, absolutely. Is this appropriate for this show?
7.
Do we ask for payment first for this?
Yes. 8.
Yes, you do. Man, so close.
Yep, close. 2 more.
Do we do 2 times through the solo, or was it 3?
9.
And God, is anybody going to buy this?
10. Yay! Those were 10 things. Thank you very much for playing along.
Oh, no, man. That was fun.
All right. So the next segment of the show is what we call used books. And this is where we take a look back at a campaign that we've played in, maybe one that ended spectacularly, but not necessarily. And the idea is that we're looking for those notes in the margin of a used book for lessons learned, things we can pull out of there and maybe learn from to not do in the future, or to do in the past, or do in the future, I should say. So as our guest, do you have a campaign that you want to talk about? So if so, kind of high level review, sort of what happened, and if there's anything in particular that you think is lesson worthy, dig into that.
Okay. I've had the DM's curse for most of my D&D career. So once the seniors who were around that invited us younger people into their group left for college, somebody had to step up, and I had books, so I did. And it was from then on out that, like anytime there was anything of significant length, I was running it. Otherwise it was like a one-off, we're just gonna, mess around and do whatever. So there was one campaign I ran, and typically what would happen is we'd get together on a Friday night, buy a 5-gallon. There's a restaurant down here in Texas called Chicken Express, and I don't know how far its reach spreads, but you could take a Gatorade cooler up there, and they would, for $10, they'd give you 5 gallons of sweet tea.
Oh
so
my
that would be
God!
For the night, yeah.
Oh God!
Take it and set it in our buddy's kitchen, and that would be what we would drink off of for the night. So they would make characters while I would hurriedly put something together. But one night I had put together a semi-horror kind of thing where they had started off going into a cave where there was this ritual going on, and these people were trying to summon this, like, I must have pulled it. I was trying to look through the 3.5 Monster Manual 1 and 2 for this beast. I think it might be the Barguest is the closest thing I can remember.
That is a thing. I don't know if it's the thing you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I think it was they were trying to summon that, and like eventually, they interrupted the summoning, which caused it to turn into this more like cloud figure, which dissipated and knocked them out. And then they woke up on this like seaside town where they found themselves going into a mansion that was owned by a dead family. Nobody had gone up there for ages, and it's just like, oh no, like they're a rich family, we don't bother them, but there's been some weird stuff going on.
Sure.
So they went up into this mansion and explored around. Spooky stuff happened. I remember like making like a box of blood fill up that had pictures of the family in it, and just really tried to like creep them out. And eventually they got to a point where they had discovered that this family had been turned into vampires. And I don't know if I'm giving a lot of good stuff as far as margin, stuff in the margins, but
well, we'll dig into that in a minute.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so they actually had to fight, like the children had been turned into vampire spawn. I was young and really demented at the time, so kids being vampires, that's fine, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So they had to fight that, and then like the vampires actually called on that shadow creature, or the Barguest, which, well, I'm just going to call it the Barguest. I don't really know what it was, but I think that's what it was. So, they had actually summoned that version of the creature back to fight. And they got through the fight, amazingly enough, and were able to overcome the odds. I think they were playing it. I think I gave them like 10th level characters. We were just having fun. So, I didn't really need to worry about a build up. But eventually, they finished the fight, and something came over them at the end, and they passed out. They woke up in like the infirmary of the town, and they had been talking to the nurse and whatnot. And they're just like, oh, well, we were up at that mansion. The nurse is like, what mansion are you talking about? And then this old nurse comes by, and she like looks at them really oddly. And she's like, this family mansion. And they're just like, yeah. And she's like, that hasn't even been like, that got demolished 50 years ago. So I did that whole weird twist thing where it's like, wait, where were we? What happened? But okay. So that's pretty much that was pretty much in one night. I think we played from like 10 to 4 o'clock. That was back in the day when I could do that stuff.
Yeah, I remember those days fondly. I am an old man. I cannot do that anymore. If I don't go to bed by like 11, I am a grumpy bastard the next day. So.
I have to put the phone down because it's bad. It'll keep me up all night.
So there's a couple things you talked about that I want to maybe pull out a little bit. Excuse me. Again, I got that tickle in the throat tonight.
No worries.
So you were talking about the one imagery you shared was the blood filling the box that had the pictures in it.
Yes.
And so what that sort of, in my mind, talks about is foreshadowing. You know, you were clearly showing there's blood covering the images of these people. They're like, you know, there's a little bit of subtext could be read there. So is foreshadowing something that you try to do in your games a lot? Is it something that you want them to be able to look back on and go, oh, okay, we didn't know it at the time, but now I see what you were doing. Is that something you intentionally try to do in your games, or is it just something that maybe came out?
I mean, at the time, it's probably just something that came out because I was really just flying off the cuff in that session. But nowadays, I mean, after having listened to so much and, you know, read as much as I'm able to, it's definitely something. Dropping those breadcrumbs has been an important part, especially with BomBARDed, like making sure that I leave the right pieces so that whenever the puzzle comes together, there's not big chunks missing out of it.
Yeah.
So that's it's actually become a very big part. And even in I play at my comic book store around the corner from my house, and that's even been something that I've done here and there in games that I've played over there too. So again, luckily recently I've had one of my players step up, and he's running an old 2E thing. But for the last year I had been DMing there too, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's foreshadowing has become a very big part, and I think it really plays into proper storytelling to be able to give those pieces and allude to things that don't get answered maybe for a while.
Excuse me. So I guess what I'm interested in a little bit here is I definitely do this, or at least I certainly try to do it. Much like you said, when I get to an end of a campaign or end of an arc or end of a story, I want people to be able to look back and see those breadcrumbs and see the trail that might have been there, hopefully, along the way. But in this particular case, this was a one-shot. You didn't have a lot of time to prep. This probably wasn't something you were ever going to pick up again. Nope. Do you think it's valuable to try to foreshadow in a game that is only going to last 4 to 5 hours and doesn't really need to connect to a larger story? Do you still think there's value in it, or is it just like kind of if it works, it works?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's value in it if you do it well enough. You really don't have to. It's really keeping it minimal as far as foreshadowing, because you can go from like minimal to grandiose, and I think you just have to choose the moment when it's appropriate to do so. And that's basically what I've tried to do in the holiday one-off that we did. You know, I definitely tried to, you know, drop some breadcrumbs there, even though I was expecting it to be one session. It's just like little things where it's like, if you pay attention, things aren't quite all there. It's like, why is this not matching up with the expectation? Or, you know, like, oh, I should have seen that coming because of this. So,
I mean, I think it's difficult because anytime you're running a game, like we've said before, it's basically the first draft of a novel. Mm-hmm. And you don't really get a chance to edit. Whatever comes out is kind of what comes out. The players, you know, don't follow the plot, which is fine because the plot is what they do anyways. But really the only thing you have, if you don't make props, and you're probably not going to make props for a one-shot, is those visual cues. So I'm just trying to think through, like, obviously kind of the big bad, you know, the summon demon sounds like that was ultimately the big bad, but the main bad guys were in fact the vampires that summoned the thing. So I'm trying to think in a one-shot what you could foreshadow or hint at would be what the true villain is. Yes. And the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned vampire was to take like wax, like maybe there's just an image of red wax dripping off the edge of a table. So you've got these two long red strings that, you know, look like blood. Or maybe there's just even two dots that have fallen on the floor. So you got almost like the two neck prints.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's pick another monster. Let's like a beholder's kind of one. Can you think of any ways that you could foreshadow a beholder without just giving it away? Anything comes to mind? Just, you know, top of the brain sort of thing.
I mean, I'd probably have a couple litterings of ash pile. from disintegration spells, I'd have to say. You know, maybe a person who's gone mad that's been locked in a room, if they're able to find their way in there. And I'm trying to think of all the different abilities of the beholder, but I mean the ash thing is the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, you know, what's with all these
That's
like, you know, yeah, it's the last people who are here. Oh my God, no. The terrible thing about that is, like, to really have that follow through, you're gonna have to kill somebody to make it apparent.
Well, that's why you have NPC helpers. It's like in Indiana Jones, he had the 3 people with him so he could kill one, or one could get killed. So you go, oh, this is dangerous. So what I was thinking, again, I'm not trying to say I'm just brainstorming at the same time, would be if there's other people, like maybe there's cultists or something who are working for the beholder. And early on, you notice that they have like tattoos on the back of their hands of eyes.
Eyes,
yeah, just like or you know, on the middle of the head or on the back of the hands, or it could be eyes just all over them, which you could present in a way that's just like almost Call of Cthulhu freaky. Yeah, but once you realize what it is, like, oh, that's what all those eyes were for, all the tattoos, it just makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really good.
So I'll throw it out to chat. We have a couple people that are going back and forth. Give us another monster, and we'll just play a little game and see if we can come up with something else. So it won't be me the one coming up with it. So takes a couple of seconds sometimes for chat to catch on. So we'll let that play out. So session 0. Take it around.
Oh, hey, I was just thinking that. I have to pull on the other drink I have, which is just tea.
Just tea, yeah. So that sweet tea. Now I'm from the South. I'm not from the deep South. I'm from Southeast Kentucky. But if I'm going to drink sweet tea, it's got to be actually sweet. Like you pour it down on the table and it kind of sits there like Jello sweet. So So was that Chicken Express sweet tea, or was it like sweet tea?
Yeah, that's. I mean, well, to me, that's sweet tea, man. I mean, I vodka is something I drink, but I'll chase it with sweet tea, and it's got to be that sweet tea. So, like, I mean, kills me when I go to a restaurant and I ask them if they have sweet tea, and they're like, "No, but we got sugar." I'm like, "No, you don't understand how sweet tea works."
I almost want to slap people. Like, that is not sweet tea. That is crappy tea with sugar that will just go to the bottom and you won't even taste it.
Yeah, it'll sit there and just do nothing. It's not going to dissolve. You're not serving me hot tea that's going to cool and then be put over ice.
So,
I don't have time for that.
So Targus threw out, first of all, sugar rush and kidney stones. I have a history of kidney stones, so but the Dryad would be something that is a monster we could foreshadow. So I'll go first this time and give you a couple extra minutes to think about it.
Thank you, sir.
So the first thing that came to mind would be there's some sort of manor house or some sort of building, maybe it's a public building in a town village that's just overflowing with flowers and bushes. Maybe there's a tree in the corner that's growing, and there's just a lot of fauna that maybe not unnaturally so, but like when I'm describing the room, I'll be like, there's a bush over here and there's all these flowers, it's well kept, and maybe they just think this person has a green thumb, or that they're into that. And then it would tie in later that they're maybe infatuated with the Dryad, or they've captured the Dryad and that spirit is inside of maybe the tree in the corner. Then it would kind of make a little bit more sense. The other thing would be an area that is doesn't have a lot of vegetation, but there's one small spot that does. So not necessarily like a patch of death, but it's in the fall. Most of the trees have turned, leaves have fallen. There's 1 or 2 trees that are vibrant. That might be a little too on the nose. But anything you can think of?
I think one thing that comes to mind is maybe there's a town that relies on a grove for certain reasons, and they don't know that there's a Dryad that's tending to it and taking care of it, but they've noticed that the grove has started to kind of wither and dull, and it's again another Dryad being captured scenario. But somebody's taken that Dryad away from their their grove where they're taking care of it. So you get sent originally over there just because it's like, well, we rely on the bounty of this place to provide for us, and it's very important to us. Maybe it could even be some kind of religious place for nearby druids that they maybe not know, but they have the sense. So, and then you get there and you can tracking or survival skill to find out that something's happened here. There's something wrong, and you follow the trail, and lo and behold, you find the captor of the Dryad.
So kind of just bouncing off that, the idea that I thought of would be where maybe the people who go to the grove for whatever reason, the bounty of that area is attacked by some sort of creature. It could be a natural creature like a wolf or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's something that doesn't happen very often. So the adventurers are hired to say, hey, we go here all the time. It needs to be safe. Can you take care of the wolves for us? And so they think they're attacking the problem, but that's actually just a symptom. The problem is that the Dryad's now gone, and the Dryad is not keeping the area safe. So these other creatures are like, hey, we can move in now.
Right.
So it's foreshadowed, but it's not like, hey, you're going to a grove in the middle of the forest and blah, 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 blah. So.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I need more practice at this.
Well, no, and again, I wasn't like trying to say mine was better.
No.
I was just bouncing off top of it.
Yeah, no, it was a great bounce, man.
I always like wolves too. Dangerous Fusion, who joined us last night. We played Dragonfire. Only communicates in emoticons, but they're really on spot on. I'm really enjoying trying to connect what we say with what Dangerous Fusion is putting up there. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about from what you talked about was when you are doing a one shot. Where does that inspiration come from? Like I said, you were basically in the corner trying to, fervently and feverishly try to come up with something. So you probably didn't know what kind of characters they were playing. You probably didn't even know what race or class or what abilities or what backgrounds. So you're kind of creating in a vacuum.
Yeah.
How is that different than, because we preach, again, session 0, everyone take a drink, all the time, like how important they are. You can't do that in that situation. So how do you compensate for not having that much information to design an encounter or an adventure when you're just like, all right, 1, 2, 3, let's go?
Having a quick thumb on the books for reference, and mainly I think my process was, okay, let's start off, thumb through the monster manual, let's find the BBG and figure out what we can do with that. All right, let's find some supporting bad guys and see where we can go from there. And then, unfortunately, the thing about doing that a lot is you can't really take into consideration a lot of the people's backstory or anything like that, and that's unfortunate because that's what makes D&D so much fun, is when you create a character, you fall in love with them, and you get to develop them. But luckily, again, I was playing with some really close friends, and we were able to kind of just like throw that to the wind to have some fun and just have a good time with it. Granted, there were some times where, longer campaigns came around if we could get to them, but more often than not, everybody was like, let's just do something else. So, but I think something like that, just really building off, like thinking, just finding that one monster that resonates. And it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it's D&D, it's a magical world. Like, who knows why this cockatrice is really, really smart, and, what happened to it? We don't know. Some weird wizard could have messed with it and been like, this is my project, and be free in the world, and I want to see what happens and witness it. Or some chaos god could just be like, this will be interesting. A really smart chicken that can turn people into stone. I like that. So, stuff like that is just, I'd really go off the deep end probably. And it's may not have been the best, but at the time, living out, I grew up out in like the country, so we didn't really have a lot.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of homebrewed. We had a comic book store, but they kind of had just like the basic stuff, not a lot of like modules that we could buy or that I remember seeing. So it was a lot of us just like coming up with stuff and be like, yeah, we'll play this, or yeah, we'll do this. Everybody get on board, and we'd go back between D&D and Star Wars, and sometimes you'd want off Star Wars stuff too. Do
you have a particular bad guy, monster, or plot hook that's kind of like always in your back pocket? Like if you have to pull something out right now, it's kind of your go-to?
I'd probably have to say Doppelganger.
Oh, I love Doppelgangers. They're so much fun.
It's really good, and it's really easy to do. I say that. It's you still have to do everything well or right. I just have a fun time with it, and maybe that's why it's just like, once I think of like, oh, they're just copying somebody, cool, let's see how that person, that doppelganger would wind up causing chaos.
I love doppelgangers. They're one of my favorite creatures to use. One of the reasons why is it fixes mistakes Like if it wasn't originally doppelgangers and you realize halfway through you totally F something up, it's doppelganger. That explains the inconsistencies. You just didn't pick up on the clues I was laying down.
You guys weren't taking notes or paying attention at all.
Yeah, foreshadowing. Ah. Nice.
No, yeah, definitely.
Right. So is there anything else about that particular night or that adventure that you just want to mine for something else before we move on? Don't have to, but if something comes up or if you want to.
I mean, I really like the concept of the weird time shift that happened at the end. I thought that was, of course I was like 17 at the time and I was like, oh, this is like funky and fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But, I think it's played out. I don't know. I'm sure it's been done. There's nothing original under the sun.
No.
So, I thought that was really cool at the time. So I'm wondering like what would be a better way of like pulling that off? Like, how could you, other than just having them black out and then come back, like what would set that up better, I guess, to really, I guess you would have to age the area. It's like give it or make it look younger actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, this looks like a young budding town and there's this nice bright, mansion at the top. Giving it those details like that, I think could really improve it and make it seem like, well, no, we're in like the third age and stuff has been around for a while and nothing looks new. Why that? So, I mean, that's kind of where my mind goes is as far as making that a little bit more tangible and not just like a white,
Well, I think to your credit here is that being a one shot and being the fact that you ended at 4 a.m., like a real hard sort of like, it was all a dream. Like, I think that's fine. Like, I don't think you need to approach it subtly. But if this was a campaign and this was like the first session and then you were going to pick this back up and, next weekend you were going to do session 2, I think leaving it a little bit more, willy-nilly, sort of loosey-goosey, probably was vague, I guess is the word I'm looking for, might be a little bit better. So maybe there's a tree, excuse me, there's a tree that's just prominent in the village or the town square, and when they come out of the hospital, it's now a huge tree or it's a sapling.
Yeah.
Either one of those would be like very noticeable. I mean, it's kind of obvious if they're not thinking time travel, they might just think, well, that's weird. You can do other things that depends on how long they were in the building. Like they were on this adventure for like a week. Mm-hmm. You could do a couple things where, maybe there's just something moved. The inn was on this side of the street, but now it's on this side of the street. Did something happen in the week that we had to move the inn, or did we forget which side of the street it was on in the week? Versus if it's been, they were only in the mansion for 4 hours and they come back out, then they would either have to be very, very subtle or something that may not be noticed until it's pointed out to them.
Right. No, I think those are all great notes.
I'm trying to think, because I love to do that sort of ambiguous ending that might be something and it might not. Probably one of the more famous examples that I've done is the first campaign that we did for the show is called Made Men. I love that show. I hate the fact that we were still figuring out audio, and some of the audio is just almost unbearable. And then there was episodes we lost. It's like almost every week I'd be like, sorry for the audio this week. It'll be better next week. And, we lost a recording, so this is what happened. It drives me crazy. But there was some amazing stuff in that series. And it revolved around like the very first scene in the game was the main character, Zane, or one of the main characters, the PC, came downstairs and he met with his crime lord boss. Because in the Made Men, they were basically low-level mobster, gangster type people.
Right on.
And the tavern owner was named Graydon, and he sort of was sprinkled throughout the entire series. Like he obviously was their boss, but very quickly they decided to run away from the gangs, and there was all these hints that there was something about Graydon more than what you knew. It involves time travel. So at the end, they solved everything, but they had to use time travel to do it. So they decided to go back in time like 80 to 100 years so that they would never see themselves. They wouldn't cause a paradox. They knew that they would never see anybody that they knew to cause any problems. And the very last thing, this was the last session, I knew that we're never going to pick up again. as they are walking through town, they go into an inn, and Graydon is the barkeep. He looks exactly the same, and he looks at him and goes, "It's about time you got here." And that was the last things that was said about that campaign.
Perfect.
I have no idea what that meant, but I thought that's pretty awesome. Like, what does that mean? It makes me think what I could do with it if we picked it back up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Man, that's good. I really like that. That's when you close the book and say, all right, somebody else run a campaign for a while. I got writing to do.
Exactly. So there's a couple things in chat I want to try to catch up on. Someone mentioned a show on Netflix called Dark. I loved that show. I blasted to that. It's very dreary. It's a German show, so it's actually dubbed into English, which is really funny. I don't know why I find this funny, but I'm kind of hard of hearing. I have deafness in one ear. So I've started watching shows with closed captioning on. Otherwise, I have to have the TV full blast, and it bothers everyone else in the house. So I can kind of hear it, but I can keep up with the words. But the closed captioning did not match the audio. Like, there would just be these subtle differences. Certain words would be off, or certain, they leave out connecting words. It's just, so it's kind of like weird sometimes reading it, and it didn't match what they said. But anyway, it's a really cool show. It involves time travel. It's very dark. Apparently in Germany, there's only 4 weather patterns. Really heavy raining, just finished raining, it's actually raining. Like, those are the only things that happens. But definitely Dark is very, very cool. I'm trying to see if there's anything else.
That's weird. I should know that. I took 4 semesters of German and yeah.
So I think that's the majority of it. So we will move on. But I do actually, I like that as maybe a new segment, or just like an exercise, is take a random monster and how can you foreshadow that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great exercise, and it really gets the noodle rolling.
So the next thing, which is everyone's favorite part of the show, this is why people come. Where have my fingers been?
Oh man!
Now, Kyle, again,
I've been looking forward to this.
You said you listened to some shows, so you've heard Where Have My Fingers Been, but you've not seen Where Have My Fingers Been.
No.
But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create a small scene. We're going to give each other a prompt, and it can be literally anything, and we will try to act out the ideas for the scene to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I usually don't do those because that's kind of my thing, is I just stop in the middle because I think it's funny. But we will have a scene. So since you are the guest, I will just ask you to prompt me first so you can see what I do before you have to do it. So give me a prompt for Where Have My Fingers Been. Oh, sorry. First, we have to do the song. I almost forgot. It's been a while since we've done Detention.
Alrighty.
Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been? Okay, now lay it on me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I started off with, your fingers have been in 1920s bootlegger America, where one is trying to get hooch past the law.
What you mean you're going to search our trunk? We ain't got nothing in the trunk. Sir, I can literally see there's a still in the back of your pickup. It's covered with a green tarp, and I can see it. No, you don't. Sir, turn around. Look. I don't think that. And that's where my fingers have been.
Excellent.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. So, all right, Kyle, sing us a song.
Said, where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
You are in the green room going on next after a band of orcs are playing a mosh pit at a D&D / concert.
Ooh, man, that sounds like a lot of fun. Hey, man, I really thought y'all did a great job. Y'all really slayed up there. Yeah, we slay all the time. What are you trying to say? Well, no, I mean, you're what? Name of your band, maybe like Slayer or something? Oh, you think you're really a funny little guy? Oh, and it's like, what if we break your axe? It's like, well, I wouldn't like that very much. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't. I wouldn't like it if you totally rude to me just because I'm an orc heavy metal band. And that's where my fingers have been.
Not all orcs, right?
Right.
So Short Meeting said, let the halflings hit the floor.
Oh man, I actually Speaking of which, I'm going to go off into a little tangent.
Sure.
Before we started BomBARDed, there was a time we were playing before that. Well, that's a little redundant, but we were playing and they were supposed to bring water back to this halfling village. Turns out the king in the land had dammed it up so that, he could divert the water to go to a quarry to cut more stone. And they wound up releasing it. Well, the king didn't like this and he showed up and basically held like all the halflings were gone when they got back. Except for one, the one that they had gotten to know and spent the night with and gave them the quest. And he was like, okay, so like, I tell you what, I'll let this halfling live if, somebody give me an arm. He was asking for a limb and nobody did it. Like I was surprised because at the time Goodrich was playing a character, Edward the Bold and Brave, I believe was his full name. I was expecting him to do it. I was like, if anybody does this would be his character's thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody did. So, of course, the king slit her throat, and then they all disappeared, and the court mage that was with them, all of a sudden, all the halflings,
yes.
Don't need to get in trouble there, all the halflings, appeared about, 500 feet above the town, and it started just raining halflings, and they had to run inside to not be pelted by halfling bodies. So that's halflings hit the floor, yeah.
Or it's raining halflings? It's raining
halflings. Hallelujah. It's raining halflings.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Fantastic. All right, so we will wrap up the show tonight as we often do with cryptozoology. This is where we take a look at a monster primarily from D&D, but does not have to be, and some ways that we've used it in the past, or maybe we'll brainstorm some ways that we could use it in the future. So Kyle, you are the guest tonight. Is there a particular monster you would like to talk about?
I am bored to talk about mimics just because, I don't know, I like them so much. They're so versatile, and you can trick people so well with them.
Okay, so I think we have touched on mimics before, but that's totally cool because we can always approach it from different angles. But I do not think I have ever actually used a mimic. Like, it's one of those things that's, it's ubiquitous to D&D. I don't remember if I've ever done. I might have like the first time I ever played when I was 12, and they opened a treasure chest and ate their arm off. But I haven't really done anything. So what is it about mimics that you like so much that you want to use them over and over again?
Well, the thing is, I think a lot of people, like, when they use a mimic, they will just have it by itself. I like to use them in twos. Like, so one story, again, back to when we were playing before BomBARDed, there was a portion where they were trying to get up to the roof to escape this undead horde. And there were two ladders. No reason why, they didn't really ask. And, I asked them, I was like, all right, well, the undead are about to knock down the door. What do you want to do? And Goodrich leapt to it. He's like, I'm going to go up the left ladder. And I looked at my notes and I was like, okay, all right, cool. And I had seen this picture that was shared in the Facebook D&D 5e group, and it was a mimic who had basically rolled a ladder out of its mouth.
I've seen that image, yeah.
It's so great. I was just like, yes, I love this. This is so fantastic. So, and that was his first experience with mimics. And, so when you present them in twos like that, it's just like, which one is it? Like, you can make the wrong choice or you can make the right choice. And it's not, they're not forced into it. It's not, it is tricking them, but it's not just like as simple as being just a door or a single treasure chest in a room. Because I feel like, mimics, they copy things. And when they copy things, I feel like that maybe that thing needs to be nearby unless they internalize it in their memory. I don't know the, etymology. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know. Yeah. But hey, I figure, they will copy something that's nearby rather than, all right, I'm going to go over here and do that. Which, that can make sense too.
I do actually like that a lot because that again, going with the foreshadowing is a way to sort of telegraph that there might be something. So it's not just like a haha, I gotcha. It could be like there's two identical chests in the room. Is it maybe one of them looks worn, the other doesn't, because maybe the mimic doesn't, copy the damages or the scratches in it. So it's like, oh, that's weird. Why are there two? Why does this one look brand new? Mm-hmm. So it's enough of a question that when something happens, you don't feel like totally like, ha, DM got you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I like using them in that manner. And of course, I've seen a couple of other different variations, like barrel mimics. I saw that picture as well, and I was like, dude, that's great too, because like, what if they're in a chase going through town, and a mimic has found their way into town, and they go down that alley with that barrel, and not saying you have to put it there just because it's a trip up, But if I wrote that like weeks ahead of a session and it came down to that, I'm like, okay, if they go through an alleyway, like I'll roll a percentile dice to determine if it's that alley. Just to give them a fighting chance of the randomness of a city and a mimic finding its way into that position. But could you imagine that kind of frustration? I mean, just to have that kind of trip up. It's like, no, get back here. What? No. And you get tripped up like that.
And then you have what I like about that is assume they don't kill the mimic. Maybe they can later use that, and they lead someone into that alley, like as a trap of their own design. Like, hey, if we lead them in here, the mimic will get them, and that will help us out, sort of a thing.
There's nothing more dangerous than a player that'll use the DM's tools against him.
Oh, yeah. You don't ever put anything in the game you don't want used against you or your monsters, because it will find a way. I'm pretty sure that the first time we talked about mimics, or at some point, I don't remember where I know we talked about mimics. It might have been like on a faculty meeting. But I talked about the idea of maybe there being this legendary sailing ship, like a pirate ship, that is just, it's supposed to be the best ship, the fastest, the strongest, whatever. And long story short, the entire ship is a mimic. So after this long quest, the players find the ship they've been looking for. They all go on board that night when they're sleeping in the bunks. The mimic eats them.
Nom, nom, nom.
Nom, nom, nom. So what I'm thinking today... what if you did something similar to like the symbiote Venom suit of Spider-Man?
Okay, yeah.
Where the mimic takes the form of like maybe armor. Okay. So it's not magical, but it does things that are like magic. And, it's like very beneficial to the player. Like it conforms. Maybe when they're running away, it sort of does something so the back's bigger, so it's like shields them in a way, or an actual shield to sort of crawls down their arm and creates, and they think they have a magical suit of armor. But it's a mimic in disguise. It's either waiting for the right opportunity, or maybe even like the symbiote, it's going to eat other people. It doesn't want to eat you because you keep providing it things to eat. So it will continue to protect you as long as it's safe to do so. So you could have that cool moment where this person has this item, whether it's armor or not, it's something that they're using. They're like, this is so cool. And then way later, they realize, oh, that's the thing that's been eating people. Every time we go to an inn, there's a murder. That's what's going on.
There you go. Because I was just thinking, I was like, yeah, you defeat an enemy, and then it goes down and swallows it. And you're just like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
Another thing I think would be a benefit of it is that, since mimics have that, natural adhesive, anytime a benefit that I would give to that armor you're talking about is anytime a person lands a hit, they have to make a strength check.
Like almost like tar, like they can't pull their sword away.
Yeah, and if they're stuck on you, you get advantage on that next hit.
Oh yeah, I like that.
You attack them and you'll have that advantage because they're not able to they're still up in your face and they're like no.
So Targris threw in there, this armor is great. It's a bit of work to run around in, but on the plus side, I'm losing weight. It's like the fat's just melting away. That's
very
great.
Good, very good.
So what are some other ways that we can use a mimic?
The Tome of Beasts has, I think it's called Cobble Swap or Cobble Spawn, and it's literally just like a cobble road that are mini mimics. And so you're going down like a desolate town. There's a lot of I mean, there's nobody around. You could say there's like bodies and whatnot if you want to. You're the DM, you figure it out.
Sure.
But it's like, man, why is this town so desolate? And like, maybe you turn around and you notice like, yeah, we walked in on a cobble road, but it's disappearing behind us. Why? And it's because it's moving to, constantly get around you.
It's almost like a piranha, but instead of being in a river, you're just being on a street.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of a way that the armor was beneficial. I'm trying to think of another way that you could use a mimic that wasn't like as an adversary, but something that could be manipulated in some way.
Let's see here then. Maybe you could get put a mimic into the bottom of a portable hole and throw it behind somebody and push them in.
There's that. I was thinking more almost like a heist movie, like Ocean's 11 situation where like you have to steal the thing. So in order to do that, you replace the thing with the thing. So,
that's good.
So you find a mimic Like that's the first part of the adventure is, hey, we need a mimic. Somebody
Yeah.
goes and finds one, captures it, either, trains it, like, treats it nice, like gives it candy, or they capture it against its will and they find
Right.
a way to make it turn into that thing. And then they, so on and so forth. So it's
That's
just,
basically Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm just trying to find a way that it's not something they have to kill. It's something they have to use. I'm sure there's a better way, but that's the first that came to mind.
No, I think that's a good way. That's definitely a good thought. Yeah. Replacing with something that's up there, man. I think that's real good.
There was this old show. There's a couple people in the chat talking about a house that eats people. But there's this old show I used to watch. It was like a knockoff of the Twilight Zone. I think it was called The Outer Limits. Did you ever watch that show?
Okay. That sounds familiar for some reason, but I can't recall.
I'm a bit older than you, so it might have been a little bit before your time because I was pretty young when it came out. But it was like these just knockoff sci-fi or scary or stories. And there's one that really still stays with me to this day. Is there was this? I think it was a guy, and he had a bed that was essentially like a mimic. Okay. And he worked for, like, he was forced to. So it starts off, he's bringing a girl home. It's like a date, and they start to make out, and they go to the bed, and he's like, I gotta go do something. So he gets off the bed, and then the bed eats the girl. And then he has this whole thing where he's like, he feels awful about it, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So the episode continues, and he meets a girl that he really likes, and he's like, I don't want to feed this girl to my bed. So instead, they go to her place. And they're sitting on the couch and they're watching TV. She's like, hey, do you mind grabbing us a couple beers? He's like, sure. So he goes and opens the fridge, and the fridge eats him and pulls him in. I was like, I don't know why, but that's just the thing that I remember.
Man, that's really awesome. I like that twist. I like that a lot.
Nice. All right. So I think that's about wrapping it up. We always end asking if there's any questions in chat. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be D&D related. It can just be about us, about something that we're, the nerd consciousness, movies, video games, whatever. So we'll throw it out to chat. There's a bit of a delay. So while we're waiting for the chat to catch up, if there are any questions, where can people find your work on the internet, Kyle? Where can they go find your stuff?
Everything is pretty much if you want to check out our band, lindbymusic.com, that's LINDBY. That's where we put out all of our music and everything. Of course, we're on Bandcamp. You can find us on Facebook through that. All of my stuff is pretty much through that. I'm not sure if we have a BomBARDed. We're working on getting a BomBARDed website, which we probably should have done earlier, but we just play it by ear. We're musicians. So, if you want to find us on any social media, search, in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, BomBARDed Cast. And we have an email, bombardedcast@gmail.com. If you want to email us something, say hi, or, anything like that. We're open to talk. We're open to chat and have a good time. And I'm on my personal Twitter is, again, Boognish Theory, Boognish_theory, BOOGNISH Theory. You got that. So... yeah. But that's pretty much where I'm at. I don't really have a lot more than I do, other than that I'm pretty. I like I said, I work in a repair shop for band instruments and play D&D and play video games. I'm living the dream.
That's
man.
The life, my friend. You don't have kids, do you?
Not yet. It'll happen someday, and I'm looking forward to making them awesome little nerds.
Yeah. So that was me. Like I love my kids. Don't ever get me wrong. But life changes. Like I used to just be able to do anything, whenever, and always. So we did have a couple questions come in. Short Manian 444 is asking any speculations on what the next D&D hardcover book is going to be. So
I really hope we get like extended classes, mainly maybe like a prestige. Actually, no, I'm gonna retract that. I want a deities and demigods book. That's what I want. I remember those from 3.5, and I loved looking through them. The stat blocks were ridiculous, and it's just like. God hunting. Yes, give me those stat blocks. So that would be my pick. And I know that's probably not everybody's favorite. I would like to see a psionics handbook. That would be nice. They used to have the quintessential series. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was like 3.5 official, but
I know there's a 2.0 or a second edition series of books called The Complete Guide. There's a complete guide to elves and complete guide to rogues and complete guide to everything. And I loved those. They were just all fluff lore books. I thought those were great.
I love lore. Volo's was great. Just, for the like monster lore alone, I love it. So anything you can give me to sink my teeth in to help me to like develop a story is gold for me.
Right. So I don't have any theories necessarily. I keep up pretty well in the Twitter sphere and talking to people, and I've heard Chris Perkins say, heard as in read his tweets, that they always sort of hide hints in certain books about what's coming up, and what I've gathered from that and from people talking is that they think it's going to be Planescape, or there's going to be some sort of planar multiverse sort of book. Which I never played in Planescape. It wasn't anything that was ever in my wheelhouse, but I know a lot of people seem to be excited about that. So I'm happy that it will be something people can have. If it's my choice, I want it to be an adventure set in Eberron, so we get official Eberron rules, because that is my favorite setting.
That's fair. I think I got to play an Eberron once in high school, and I can't even remember what I played. I want to say Warforged, but I feel like that was a buddy of mine who got to play that. It's been so long. But man, yeah, no, that'd be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I don't know that's going to happen, but I would like for it to. Short Meeting in 444 also asked if we've ever been inspired by a D&D game to write music or vice versa. I am not musically inclined at all, but we did just do an episode last week. It was a faculty meeting. It's not out on audio only. It's just on the web, on the YouTubes, where we talked specifically about taking lyrics from music and poetry to inspire games. But my guest was the one who did all that. I was just like going, okay, that sounds fine. Good. Yeah. So if you're interested, maybe check out that episode for some, but you as a musician, do you cross over like lyrics into the game into the lyrics?
I've actually started doing that with my favorite band, Ween.
There we go.
There is a song on White Pepper called Back to Basim, and we're actually at a point in the story on BomBARDed where they are going to Basim so that later on they can go back, of course, because that's the name of the song. But no, and I've listened to a buddy of mine that I play with at the comic book store. Of course, I love Rush, Geddy Lee, bass player. That's my thing. So, but if you listen to Rush's The Trees, listen to those words and just like tell yourself it's not a D&D story, and you won't be able to convince yourself it's not. It's very, very much like, the maple versus, I think it's the oak. I can't remember right offhand, but it's fantastic. And I mean, any prog rock stuff, I mean, it really delves into that realm of fantasy. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's a gold mine, and for ideas, if you have really well written songs that are story driven in a way. So yes, now going the other way, of course, and BomBARDed, we have to use the storyline that we're doing to write the song that's going on. Otherwise, it's nothing. And the character I'm playing will just be like, why did you sing about that?
Right, exactly.
So I mean, we're actually practicing that latter part, and but I don't see why not. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't take a story and take however many arcs that you have or whatever and condense it down into a song, or even a rock opera if you wanted to. You could have a concept album that's all about one D&D session. I would love to listen to that. If somebody has done that, like, send it to me.
It's out there somewhere,
I'm sure.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I've been going back and re-listening to all of our old episodes of faculty meetings, which they weren't always called faculty meetings, but that's irrelevant. But I've been making my way through them, and just one of the ones I was listening to this week, we had a question sent in from a listener asking our advice on using a musical puzzle. This person was a musician, and they wanted to use a puzzle that basically said something about age, and the hint was that it was A, G, and E was the chords, and there would be a musical puzzle later. I don't remember the exact wording, but that's not the only musical puzzle. I know from like Goonies, there's the thing where you got to read the notes and play the organ, or the things fall. I'm trying to think of any other way that you could do. I mean, you probably.
I actually did that in the first episode of the holiday special that we did. One of the first rooms that they get to inside the toy factory is they're given riddles, and one of the ones I'm remembering right off the top of my head is despite all its rage, I'm still able to contain this rodent. What am I? CAGE.
Yeah.
So, and luckily, everyone being a musician at our table, they were able to solve those pretty easily, but it's a lot of fun to do. And they actually, play them out and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, no, absolutely. You can totally use music if you do it right. It's gotta, and man, I was playing last Thursday and a musical puzzle came up, and I'm not playing the bard in my in my D&D campaign there. But one of my friends, of course, is, and I am sitting there overthinking this puzzle that's going on because the bard had learned a melody earlier, and it's just a melody. He doesn't actually have a melody he's playing, but and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, how does this actually work? How can we play the song in the right way to get this altar to move, or is there something I need to do with these symbols? And I really like overthought it, because I was starting to ask the DM. I was like, okay, well, what is the melody like? Like, what is the contour like? And is there anything about the contour or the intervals between the notes? And it's just like, Kyle, shut up.
Yeah.
You're thinking too much. Your inner theorist is coming out. Stop it. So yeah, you can definitely overthink it, but if you, it's just got to have that right flavor to it, I guess.
Yeah. The only other thing I was thinking of, that there could, obviously there's the, music soothes the savage beast, thing where you could have someone has to play a melody to calm a beast down. But I kind of like the opposite of that, where they have to play poorly. Like there's something about the cacophony of disparate tones or music or even songs, like that's the answer to the puzzle in some ways, that we all have to play a different song in a different key or whatever. I'm not a musical person, but just it's got to sound terrible, but it can't just be garbage. It has to be intentionally different, and that is what will do a thing or unlock a thing or open a thing.
Oh man, I mean, you could have a god of chaos that's like, if you want to access my temple, if you want to have a party with me and see me, you have to bring discord and dissonance. And maybe you play, instead of like actually causing discord and dissonance, it's like on the front of the temple it'd say like, I enjoy the sound of dissonance and discord. And like, it's like, what do we make the town go like wild? Do we make everything chaotic here? Or it could be as simple as the bard just playing like a diminished chord, a fully diminished chord, which is just really, really like grinding. It sounds really like notes clashing. So, and that could be the answer too. So, that's one thing, and a DM tip that I've read here and there is like, hey, come up with a puzzle, and whenever somebody comes up with an answer you think's good enough, just be like, yes, that's it. You've got it.
That's exactly that is my current puzzle, because if I try to come up with an answer, it will be so convoluted no one will ever solve it. So I'll just throw out a random puzzle, and when someone comes up with something that sounds reasonable, I'm like, you got it. And they feel smart and special. They feel like they solved it, and that, it's all smoke and mirrors. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up there. First of all, Kyle, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with the continued success of BomBARDed. I do hope people will go check it out. I think it's a cool concept. People have talked a lot about an all Bard party, and you guys are actually making it happen. And the fact that you're actual musicians, I think, is pretty awesome. So, very cool. Hope people check it out. Thank you for joining me. For everyone in chat, thank you so much. It really makes the show so much easier to do when we have people we can interact with, and prompts and questions and just comments. That keeps the show lively, I think. So thank you guys so much. So until next time, this has been Michael.
I'm Kyle.
And we'll do an awkward wave out. Yay! Takes me a little while to find the thing here.